Hello, thank you for joining us for tonight's Funds and Focus on Rates and Fees. We appreciate that you decided to join us tonight. We know that you had choices on where you were going to spend your time tonight, and we are grateful for you to come tonight and spend your time with us. For those of you who are joining us in person, as you walked in, there was a comment card or question card handed to you. We want you to use that card to write your questions as you're listening to the presentation, and at the end, we will try and answer everybody's question at least once. If you would like to be included and you're in person on future communication about this, we'll email and say, hey, we've posted it to the website. It's ready for you if you want to share this with your friends. Put your email on there. Even if you don't have a question, go ahead and turn that in, and we will use that to help communicate with you about future events. For those of you who are joining us online, we've dropped some documents in the chat. Those documents were available to the people joining us in person. We want you to feel comfortable following us along and be able to see documents up close, and that's what those links in the chat are for. Thank you for joining us, and just know that each of these has provided some level of value to the community. We've heard a lot of great feedback. If you're joining us for the first time, I want you to know that we post all of these online. We recently did one on development and incentives in mid-April. That's all online. And our Parks and Recreation event that was held in mid-December, that's online too. So we make sure that these are available so that when people have questions or they want to share it with somebody for information, that in the future you can refer to those. That also brings me to my introductions. I want to do a shout out to Ileana Mildrum. She is our communications supervisor. She helped to wrangle content tonight to ensure that our speakers had a nice presentation for you. I want to do a shout out to Jeff Koska and Clara Schultz. They're running the broadcast tonight. They're also the ones that are in the booth at our city council meetings, making sure that those are live streamed. Digital communication and engagement specialist Chris Martin is joining us tonight for the first time. He is running our Zoom, and we appreciate that. And again, those of you online, if you drop those questions in the chat, Chris will make sure he gets those to us. We also have our speakers tonight. We've got Molly Elder, our acting deputy city manager and chief financial officer. She's been with the City of Loveland for 10 years and brings extensive leadership and financial management experience to our city. On the utilities side, we've got Sharon Israel, Director of Utilities, and Chandra Stover, Deputy Director of Utilities. They're going to talk about the water and power utility portion of rates and fees for you tonight. Sharon is Vice Chair of the Board for Platte River Power Authority. She's a professional engineer and brings more than 25 years of experience working with Colorado utilities to the City of Loveland. Chandra's background brings more than 15 years of organizational excellence to the City of Loveland utilities. And then at the end of the table, we've also got Will Jones with us. He's the Director of Public Works. He's been with us since January, and he brings more than January or December? January? Okay, making sure I got that right. And he brings more than 25 years of leadership experience in both the public and private sectors in this industry. My name's Kim Overhaul. I'm Communication and Engagement Manager. I help organize and moderate these events as well. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If you've got your cell phones with you, if you could turn the ringer off. We don't want you to turn off your cell phone. It's very important that you feel connected to your family. We recognize that, but we also want to make sure that since we're recording this for others, that we have those cell phones turned off. If this is your first time in the Rialto, and by the way, the Rialto is a city facility in case you didn't know, and you need to find the bathroom is actually over by the elevator back there. So if you're looking for a bathroom and this is your first time, that is where you're going to go. At the end, we're going to try and get to everyone's questions. If there's anything we can't answer tonight, please again, put your email address in there. Some of you may have the same questions in mind. When you came in, we had some frequently asked questions at the entrance. Those are questions that we asked our front desk staff and those who answer the questions most often. What are the biggest number one questions that you get? And can we try and answer those even at the beginning of this and send you guys away with a copy of that as well? Because if we're getting those questions a lot, chances are they're already on your mind. And so it's helpful for us to address that. Tonight, like I said, we're going to talk about rates and fees as it relates to your utility bill. We've got a brief introduction and budget summary from Melly. She's going to talk a little bit about why we're here. And then you're going to hear from Sharon and Chandra about the utilities side. And then we'll move over to Will Jones about the public works, what it is that they do operationally related to your utility bill. And with that, I will hand it over to Molly.
Okay, great. Oh, loud. Okay. I see some familiar faces, folks that I know have attended these in the past or I've seen at city council meetings, which is fantastic. I hope those of you who've attended prior Funds and Focus events found them useful, and that's why you're here today. And for the new faces, welcome. Hopefully you all walk away with some more information and able to ask questions that may be on your mind. So we just want to talk about what is our goal? Why are we here tonight? We did some self-reflection as a city within the last couple of years and really realized we were not providing enough opportunities to engage with the public and allow the public to ask us questions and learn more about what is it that we do and how are we using your public dollars. And so that's why we've made some additional efforts towards outreach and bringing the public in to talk to us and tell us what's on your mind. So that's why we're here tonight. And our goal is just consistent, reliable information that's transparently provided. And hopefully we're doing well in that area. But if you ever have any tips, we're here for them. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I don't know how long all of you have lived in Loveland, but hopefully you've been able to experience a lot of the assets and services and programs that Loveland has to provide. We really are a full service city. And when we think about Loveland's finances and how those services are funded, it's important an easy way to do it is to break it into buckets. We kind of hold funds in different buckets. So the one we probably refer to most often is our general fund. And the reason for that is because it provides the funding source for a lot of the services that you use every single day and that really make up the fabric of what Loveland is and the things we enjoy about Loveland. So general fund helps support police, our courts, parks, recreation, cultural services, the Rialto right here. So there's streets to some degree. So there's a lot of services that we provide that come out of the general fund. And the source of revenue for the general fund is taxes, sales tax, use tax, property tax, user fines, fees, permits, etc. The other bucket, which kind of breaks out into two smaller buckets, is our dedicated funds bucket. So dedicated funds, like the ones below, and we'll talk about those, can't be used for anything other than their designated purpose. And the purpose is established either by law or by charter, things like that. So enterprise funds are supported through user fees. So this would be like our utilities or even our golf fund. All the money that comes into that fund is generated through user fees. People that use that service are paying for that product. And that enterprise funds have to be fully self-sustaining. So the funds that come in are used to pay for operations, maintenance, and even long-term capital projects. Special revenue funds are dedicated funds that are established by federal or state law or municipal ordinance or resolution. So some examples that we have within the city are like our open land sales tax fund, our perpetual care fund, things like that. Those are generally smaller funds, but they're still an important part of those buckets. So when we talk about the city's funds, it can get confusing because you may hear people say, well, as I understand it, the city has hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. And to some degree, that's accurate. But it's important to realize that when we look at the city's fund balances, which is what this pie chart attempts to do, we have to keep in mind those buckets. So the green portion represents the general fund's share of our city fund balances. A big part of that green chunk is our general fund reserves. These are the reserves that we set aside so that we can manage any emergencies that come up. So like, for example, when the flood happened, we had cash on hand to go out into the community that day, the next day, and start making repairs and helping the community. Without that, we would really be relying on federal and state sources, and that can take weeks, months, and so on. So that's a really critical piece. The general fund unassigned is what we have left over, kind of available for things that just come up. That's a very small number and something that we are somewhat concerned about, and that we'll be having discussions with the community about going forward as to, what are our next steps. The other part, the red funds, other funds, this is representative of those special funds and the enterprise funds. This looks like a lot of money, and it is, and there's a reason behind that. As I stated before, enterprise funds need to pay for not only their operations and their maintenance, but long-term capital. So if they are planning to install a substation or something like that for power, they have to have those funds saved up and on hand. And that is why you see substantial balances in those enterprise funds. And that's something that the group will be talking a little bit more about here shortly. And then finally, I just wanted to share, we can do the next slide. When we're talking about enterprise funds, these are the categories that fall into our enterprise funds. So water is an enterprise fund, electric and communications is an enterprise fund, even mosquito control and golf. So again, if you ever hear anybody saying, oh, I don't know why we support the golf courses, you don't if you don't golf there. Only users support that service. So tonight we're going to be talking about the 6 that are on this side of the slide. The other 2 we're not really going to talk about tonight, but we certainly would be open to addressing those at a future Funds in Focus if that's something that's interesting to the public.
Okay, and so now we're going to hand it over to utilities, and then after we hear from utilities, we'll hear from Public Works. So I'm going to hand it off to Sharon.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Molly. I'm Sharon Israel. I'm the Director of Utilities for Loveland, and I want to thank you all for coming tonight to hear about my favorite topic, Public Works and Utilities infrastructure. It's our backbone of the city and ensures we have a thriving community. Before we get into individual rates and charges, I'd like to frame how Public Works and Utilities operate in Loveland. Our Public Works and Utilities teams work 24/7, 365, around the clock to provide reliable services not only to Loveland, but also to the surrounding area. Around the clock, we've got teams on standby. They're ready for emergencies. We also have folks on our team who are planning for what this city's going to need in 50 years. So we're thinking about today, what's going to happen tonight. We're thinking about this next year, and we're thinking about the next generation. We're also community-owned and not-for-profit, which means no shareholders, no profit motive. Every dollar collected from our customer bills is paying for day-to-day operations, or it's being reinvested into our system. So for some more information about our utilities rates and fees, I'm going to introduce Chandra Stover, Deputy Director of Utilities. Thanks.
Hi. So I'm Chandra. I'm also a resident in Loveland, and we're going to talk a little bit about the bills and all sorts of things that I also pay. So this first slide gives us a quick snapshot of how utilities charges work across Loveland's electric, water, and wastewater, also known as sewer. For electric service, we pay 2 components, a monthly base charge and a usage charge. The base charge helps us keep the system running, everything from maintaining lines to keeping substations operating. The usage charge reflects how many kilowatt hours we consume. Our electric rates are also seasonal. Summer is July through October, which helps us align pricing with the higher cost of supplying power during peak demand months. Water bills work the same way. The monthly base charge supports the infrastructure that delivers clean, reliable water every day. The usage charge is based on how many gallons a household uses. These charges make sure we can maintain the system and replace the system as needed to keep up with wear and demand. For sewer service, the monthly base charge maintains the wastewater collection and the treatment system. The usage portion is based on each customer's winter water quarter average, which is December through February. That gives us a fair estimate of how much wastewater we generate. These charges fund the essential wastewater system that protects public health and the environment for the whole community. Across all three utilities, the structure is designed so customers pay only their share of the system costs and growth pays for itself. This helps us maintain fairness, stability, and long-term reliability for our community. Okay, let's dig into our bill. So now that we've looked at all three of our major utilities, the electric, water, and sewer, this sample bill shows us how those charges come together on a typical monthly statement. What this bill does is show that each utility appears as its own line item. So you have electric, water, and sewer. And they each have their own charges, and each one stands alone financially. This helps us clearly see what we're paying for rather than a single combined number. One of the most helpful parts of this bill is that it shows the actual formulas right there used to calculate each utility charge. For example, you'll see that the usage is multiplied by the rate. For 439 kilowatt hours multiplied by the electrical rate, or the number of gallons of water, or sewer rate. So you can see those. My pointer's not working. This level of transparency helps us understand exactly how our usage turns into dollars on our bill. When we wonder why one month is a little bit higher or lower, this is where we can see it. The formulas make it clear that changes in electrical use or water use or wastewater flow is the biggest driver of changes in our bill, not the rates themselves. Electric varies with things like weather and home energy bills, and water varies with indoor and outdoor use. Sewer is based on the flow returning to the system. The total bill here is $206.72, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And we can see exactly how much of that comes from each utility. This visual breakdown helps us understand our full cost of service and reinforces the transparency of our billing process. You'll also notice a small section labeled taxes and fees. These are not utility charges. They are not tied to our operating costs, and they're required city taxes that appear on all applicable city bills. We separate them out to make sure that you can clearly see what goes into the utility versus what goes into the citywide tax requirements. Showing the bill this way is important because it helps us demonstrate that charges are tied directly to the services delivered. As a not-for-profit organization, every part of this bill reflects the actual cost of providing reliable service, and growth continues to pay for itself through separate fees rather than through these monthly customer charges. So let's talk about rate setting. When we set our rates, whether it's for water or electric, wastewater service, everything is based strictly on the actual cost of service, the cost of providing service. We're a not-for-profit organization, so we only collect what we need to operate safely and reliably. None of our utilities generate a profit. Every dollar is reinvested back into system reliability, infrastructure, and day-to-day operations. To keep costs predictable and avoid large jumps, we use small annual adjustments across all utilities. This allows us to keep up with increases in power costs, materials, infrastructure repairs, labor, and regulatory requirements. Taking this smooth, consistent approach helps us ensure stable budgets while minimizing customer impacts. And then every 3 years, we complete a full rate study for each utility service. This is an in-depth review of the operating costs, usage patterns, and long-term infrastructure needs, and our financial obligations. The goal is to make sure every utility's rates are fair, aligned with what actually the cost of service is, and distributed equitably among our different customer types. So businesses, and residential. Rate setting is ultimately about long-term sustainability, maintaining dependable electric service, safe and clean water, and effective wastewater treatment. New development is required to cover its own impacts through connection fees and system development charges so that we, the existing customers, are not subsidizing the growth, and that rates go towards maintaining and operating the systems that serve today's residents and businesses. So I wanted to talk to you about this too, because I know it's a little bit of a hot topic in our community. As you're probably aware, credit card and debit card fees went into effect on June 1st. I want to be really clear about what these are. These are pass-through processor fees, and they're not fees that are charged by the city. That's why you won't see them on your bill. No matter which payment processor we use, Visa and MasterCard charge for the use of their card networks. So as a municipal utility, we do not bill these costs to everyone's rates. Only the customers that want to use that convenience are charged for that fee. This keeps the billing fair, so customers paying by other methods aren't having to cover the cost of the processors. We do offer several free payment options. The one I use is auto pay through my checking account. I set it up. It's easy. I don't think about it. It just comes out of my bank account each month. You can also set that up so that you physically go online and make your payment when you're ready, as long as it's within the window, right? You can also come in and make a payment. You can mail a check, or you can, using your bank's, like a lot of banks have a payment system, so they'll send the check for you. Those are also free ways that you can pay your bill. And for more information about Public Works rates and fees, I'd like to introduce Will Jones.
Thank you and good evening. As Kim alluded to, my name is Will Jones. I am the Director of Public Works and been here just over 6 months. And so as you look at Public Works is a little bit unique in the sense that we do have some of the general funds funding sources that Molly talked about earlier, fleet, facilities, some of those, but we also have some other elements that are focused or funded more specifically from the utility fees. And so we can go into the next slide. So from a Public Works and utilities charges related to that, we have stormwater, which are really, the purpose of that is to protect people, property, and really focused a lot on water quality, as well as the Big Thompson River. I don't know how many folks were in the area in 2013, but there was a pretty sizable event that caused a lot of damage. And so really trying to make sure that stormwater element, we're being mindful of that, reducing flooding really through proactive drainage improvements. We also have mosquito control. And so obviously we are not going to be able to eliminate all mosquitoes, but really trying to be proactive as part of that service. We do testing on about 40 sites throughout the community. And then when those tests or those samples get to a certain level, they do fogging and some of those things to try to manage that from that perspective. Solid waste, really one of the highlights, if you will, for Loveland, in my opinion. But really at the end of the day, they're delivering dependable waste and recycling services. And so it's really beneficial to have one hauler for residential service. It has an impact on our roads. Instead of having 5 or 6 vehicles, trash trucks going down the road, you have one. And so that's very helpful. And really at the end of the day, it's keeping Loveland healthy and clean and, servicing over 29,000 customers at, 72,000 carts, if you will. And Loveland is leading the way in recycling and waste diversion. The state's standard, average more specifically for waste diversion, how much we're diverting from landfills, is about 15.7%. Loveland is over 60 because of the recycling center, because of the recycling program. So it's really a great program. Bless you. And then lastly, streets and how we maintain a safe and connected community on our roadways. So, excellent. So you can see here just a quick snapshot. I won't spend a ton of time on this. Chandra already went through a lot of great details on this, but you can see there highlighted their solid waste as well as some of the other services and streets as well, and stormwater. So next slide. So in our day-to-day, we obviously have operations. You see folks out in the fields managing the infrastructure that we have. But part of the utility fee is also thinking, as Sharon talked to, thinking about how we look at the future infrastructure, the future population. And that not only includes, future growth, but also managing and maintaining the assets that we do have. And so on the picture here, you can see that is a road in Loveland. That is also a pipe from Loveland. And so making sure that we are being intentional about the asset management and when we're replacing things is a super important part of managing. And I'm going to throw a little bit of data out there. So there's 6,373 different storm sewer pipes in our community, totaling 132 miles. So if you think about that and put that in context, that is driving from Loveland to Colorado Springs. End to end, that's how long it would be. About 1,844 manholes, over 3,000 inlets. So the inlets are in the street, and that's where the water goes into. Water lines, there's 489 miles, which is basically from here to Salt Lake. And then streets, there's 823 lane miles. So if you think of Eisenhower, there's 5 lanes, depending on which section you're in. But that's basically going from Loveland to St. Louis. So really trying to manage that and maintain what we have is super important. So on the next slide, you can kind of see, and I've picked on pavement. In my first 6 months here, really trying to dive into how we're managing that, what our current asset condition is. And so, as you guys all realize and know, we are not the only community with streets. We're not the only one with pavement. And so using best practice, using performance measures, and so for pavement, PQI is one of those. And so all of this is utilized to go into those rates and fees that we've all talked about. And so currently, our PQI is at 57.4 out of 100. And so this map, and we've got another version up here if you want to try to find your street, is, there's a lot of red on there, which is, not the color that we want. And so working to really use asset management and best practices, much like in your own car, we all know what happens if you don't change your oil. And so the reason I mention all of this is this goes into the rates and the fee calculations that play into this. Unfortunately, if we were to raise the utility rate for the street fee to get our PQI to 70 within the next 10 years, it would triple. We would need to triple the street fee. And so it's important to balance that. And so just on the next slide, you can see we've just kind of I put that in a pie chart. So you can see from a radius distribution perspective, how many of our roads are in good condition, how many of our roads are unfortunately failed. And so without a different funding approach to our streets and roads, we are trending to a PQI of 47 to 45 in the next 10 years on our way to dirt roads, unfortunately. And so part of this is through prioritization and some of those, but it's going the wrong direction.
So before we go to our questions and answers, since we're talking about utilities and public works, I do want to throw something out there. People will often say, why aren't you coordinating your projects? And I want to verify that we absolutely are coordinating our projects amongst the two groups. A lot of times, if we know that we've got water pipes under a road, such as we do out here at Hip Streets, we coordinate with streets to ensure that we're just tearing it up one time and finishing the work along with that project to minimize disruption. As you'll see out here with Hip Streets, we did rolling closures so that we didn't have any one block closed for the entire duration of the project. So at least once a year, we're getting together and going, what are all of the projects and how can we better coordinate and work best together. So a lot of times people will say, well, wait a second. We really do aim. That is our goal, is to minimize as much as possible the disruption to the community and to use the our taxpayer resources as effectively as possible. So when we're out here, we're hoping that once we open this up, we're not having to go in there again anytime soon. So now we're going to go into our questions and answers. And again, I really value your time. We're grateful that you're here. You should have a sheet of paper for writing down questions. If you're online joining us, please drop your questions in the chat and we will get them to these guys. I will balance between in-person and online questions. I'm going to come around here, or Julie will come around here in a second if you want to raise it if you've got a question right now. I know a lot of this does seem to be pretty straightforward, and it's helpful to see everything that goes on our bill. I think it was very helpful today to see how I could look at my usage and go, wait a second, I might have a leak here because my bill has increased for water usage this month compared to other months, or maybe I was watering more outside and that's the reason for an increase in my bill. But it can alert you as well to when you have issues with your system. Again, if you've got any questions and you're in person, go ahead and raise that sheet of paper. Julie's going to come around and collect them and then bring them over. And if you're online, please drop those in the chat. I asked this exact same question. Thank you to whomever, thank you for all of your questions, obviously, but, and your time here. On the utility bill, what is hand contribution? On this one, it does say hand contribution, and this particular example shows that we are paying it. Not everybody pays it. So, Chandra, do you want to take that one?
So the hand contribution it's voluntary. It lets you add a small donation to your bill, and all the donations go directly to help the Loveland residents that are having trouble paying their bills. And there's a website that you can visit for more information. We can get that to you.
So it's like a Helping Neighbors fund, which is, I know myself, I've had to use that in my earlier days as a young adult just out of college. So really appreciative to those who donate to that fund. This next question is about the general fund. So Molly, I think this is best for you. The circle representing the general fund, what part of that portion that's representing the general fund is used to spend on city's expenses? You want me to go?
If you want to go to slide 6. So this pie chart is not showing revenue and expenses. It's showing essentially cash in the bank. So these are the existing fund balances really as of the end of 2025. And so this is basically what we have in the bank after all the revenue came in and expenditures went out for 2025. This is what was left over. And so the red shows or is representative of what was left in the special funds and enterprise funds, and the green shows what was left in the general fund.
Please don't judge that I'm going to say this, but I'm really proud of our finance team. They just brought home the Triple Crown Award. Less than 5% of all local governments across the United States and Canada have actually earned that award for transparency. That's for our 2024 budget. The reason that it's for the 2024 budget is because they first actually have to earn other awards before they can qualify for the Triple Crown. And that's why in 2026, we've got this Triple Crown award that has come to us. And so it is a big deal. Good job to you guys.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Big shout out to our staff because we have some really amazing staff members that make that happen. Also related to the timing, we literally just finished our 2025 ACFR, which is the financial, all the financial reports for the city. That is what we work with our auditor on. You can actually access that online if you really, really love Excel and spreadsheets and hundreds of pages of financial data. If that doesn't float your boat, there is it's called a PAFR, it's the People's Annual Financial Report, and that attempts to drill it down a little bit more into terms that everybody can understand. So if looking at Excel spreadsheets isn't your jam, there's that other option for you.
The place that you're going to want to start to find our budget information, because again, it is a transparent process, is lovegov.org/budget. Again, that's lovegov.org/budget. And you're able to go in there and just see how our budget is allocated. And we do that every year as a way to be transparent. Okay, this is a meter question. So we just finished one AMI project and now we've moved on to the other. Can you explain the process of updating our equipment to read meters?
Yeah, thank you for this question. So we're moving all of our water metering to some system called automatic metering infrastructure. And kind of in the middle of this, because we just wrapped up all of our meters transitioning to electric automatic metering infrastructure. This does a couple things for us. A big cost savings is that we're no longer driving around in trucks reading meters on the electric side. And the goal is that when we do this on the water side, we won't be driving around in trucks reading those meters either. We're going to be using radio signals from meters to provide a continuous stream of data and usage for both the electric and the water here in the near future, so that our customers can have immediate access to usage. We can read peaks on a more regular basis, which can help our system operations. And again, there's cost savings associated with not actually driving around and reading meters in person anymore. I live in another community that has already introduced water AMI. And so I am a customer with one of these units, and I want to share with you one of my favorite aspects of it. It will read if I have a leak. If there's more than just a small amount of water going through my meter in a 24-hour period, I get a text message, I get an email. I've raised teenagers who sometimes take really long showers, don't turn the spigots off, leave a little something dripping in the backyard. It's great in those situations because when you get a text message, then you know to go look for something. Could be a leaking toilet. At this time, we do try to identify where leaks are for customers and do proactive outreach, but this is much quicker, and it's a guaranteed way to save money if you do end up with a leak in your system. So we're a few years out from rolling out to the entire community, but in the meantime, we're working on developing a dashboard, and that will give everybody who's one of our customers for water and electric access to their data. You can use it for tracking how much you're using, maybe setting a budget for yourself, or again, getting a quick leak detection if you're in that situation.
Thank you. And this question, I think we may have already covered in this presentation. This is for you, Will. The road fee that is on the utility bill, what would that need to be to maintain the PQI in the mid-50s? I think you were talking about actually if we were to improve our PQI in the presentation, but to maintain where we're at now.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And so the number that I said, tripling the current would have to get it to the 70, which is really the industry best practice from a road management perspective. As it relates to what it would be to maintain a mid-50s, that's something I'd have to go back, and we'd be glad to get back to whoever submitted that with to get that number. I could speculate, but I don't want to guess wrong or assume wrong. So.
Okay. This next question I think is for Sharon and even myself. It's the franchise fees from Excel and Comcast. Where do they go? So we actually have a franchise fee that helps offset the cost of us running the television station. It goes into equipment, and we share that with the school district. So every other year, the city gets to use that for different broadcast improvements. For those of you who are here and online, we do post these. It goes into the equipment that we're using back there, but we post them on our website. We'll put them on the special webpage that we've created to follow budget. We post it to YouTube. We'll throw them on social media. We send them via email. So we do try and distribute them as much as possible. And then, of course, we've got our live stream on lovegov.org/TV. And then we rebroadcast. So if you want to look, the next day we try and chapter those city council and planning commission meetings, and we try and chapter the city council meetings by the next day. So if there's an agenda item you wanted to follow, you could click on that the next day and go straight to the specific agenda item. So that comes with a cost, and that at least the Comcast franchise fee, I know a portion of that goes to our communication that we do for the broadcast. In terms of Excel, that one I'm unfamiliar with.
I believe that goes into the general fund. I will certainly check and we can communicate that out. Yeah, I'm more familiar with the Comcast one, but I believe they both go into the general fund.
And then, Will, this one's for you. I believe that the Larimer County landfill had filled up and now they're working on a new one. What's that impact to our fees?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And actually was up there during their grand opening a couple weeks ago to visit the site well north of Wellington. And so from an operational perspective, cost-wise for our trash service, there won't be an impact because we will continue to take it to the current location as Loveland is built out, or excuse me, Larimer County is built out a transfer center. So your trash, as it always has, will continue to go to the same site. The difference will be that Larimer County will then transport that up to the new site north of Wellington. And so at this time, we don't expect any type of increase from Larimer County, as a result of that. But I can commit to the fact that there won't be any impact to that from a Loveland operations perspective.
Okay, this one is about payment in lieu. So enterprises pay a payment in lieu of tax to the general fund. Can you explain what that is and why golf doesn't do a payment in lieu?
So because municipalities are exempt from sales tax and things like that, when, for example, our golf fund is purchasing equipment or anything like that, they're not paying tax on that. We don't have to pay tax. And that tax would be paid to the general fund, just like if you go out and buy some equipment, you're paying tax, that goes to the general fund. And so in order to try to make that equitable, that's where we charge PILT. It's calculated both based off of the property tax that's foregone because the golf course, maintains X number of acres of land that otherwise we aren't collecting property tax on. And then additionally that sales tax piece. So golf actually does pay PILT. We recently made a change to that. So we recalculated their PILT assessment, so to speak, from the city, and they actually do contribute to paying PILT. Utilities also pays PILT. So and that's something that we're continuing to work on and refine. It used to be more of a flat percentage, and now we're trying to build in more based on the actual usage and things like that. So you're correct that golf did not used to pay that. There was basically a PILT vacation that council approved for a period of time, but we have brought that back.
A lot of people here and online tonight may have just heard this term for the first time. It is a common practice among governments, local governments, to have a PILT. So we're not doing anything that's outside of the industry standard. If, again, you're joining us and this is the first time you've heard payment in lieu, that term, please Google it and learn more or ask more questions about it because we'd love to share that with you. This one is, again, for you, Sharon. So, and I do think we may have already addressed it. Several years ago, we heard about the upgraded electric meters and what is happening with these.
We've completed our upgrades for the upgraded electric meters. So again, these are those AMI meters that provide a continuous running stream of data. It has eliminated our need to go around and drive and read those meters in person. And as I mentioned, you can look forward to seeing a dashboard that will be launching. That's a new customer interface that will have more access to data. I'll give you more information about forecasting your bill, what kind of power usage that you're using right now. So we're declaring victory on that one and picking up the water AMI next.
So if a customer, so for those who are online, That's why we're also doing the comment card. We want to make sure that they can hear these. So I want to make sure very politely that I make sure our online guests also hear. The follow-up question that somebody in person had, and we appreciate it, is their meter didn't get upgraded. So they're asking, what about if your meter didn't get upgraded? That's a very important question, which is why I want to make sure our online audience also hears it. And then also a reminder in the audience, because I was just going to come around and ask if you've got a question, if you can raise those and we'll come pick those up. But what do we do for those that haven't seen that happen yet and live in city limits proper? They're not part of Loveland zip code. They're not part of the county. They're City of Loveland proper.
Everyone should have already been done, unless I think there's a few people that opted out, if I'm not mistaken. If you didn't opt out, we can connect after this meeting. I can get your information and find out what's going on.
We certainly want to provide the best customer service that we possibly can. And take a look at that. How do you know is another question that we're getting from the audience. How do you know that that's been upgraded?
You'll see a different digital meter on the back of your house or your business. But again, what Chandra said, if you'd like us to double check for you, we can do that, but everybody should be transitioned over unless you opted out.
Okay, I want to get to this utility bill slide here because this next question relates to the utility bill slide, so I was saving it for last right now so I could move over to it. This question is about the storm drainage fee. How do we calculate? How do we know, especially when not every household has a storm drain in front of it?
Yep. Very good question. And so impervious ground, so sidewalks, roof, and so on. So that's how that is calculated. So we utilize satellite data to collect that information, and so that's what is utilized to determine that rate. So.
We've got some time. We've got about 10 more minutes to go ahead and keep answering your questions. We really do appreciate all of your time and all of your questions. Obviously, we don't want to draw this out if we've got all of the questions, but we certainly want to do a last call for those who are joining us online and in person to ask any questions that you might have specific to the utility bill. Again, we're here today to talk about the utility bill and rates and fees. So if you have a piece of paper that I can come around and collect and we can ask this in here, if you guys can raise it, and online, if you can drop your question in the chat, we'll give it another minute or two. While we're waiting for those questions, I'll tell you that, earlier I had mentioned several of the ways that we will rebroadcast this. And somebody did ask about the franchise fee related to Comcast. We do broadcast on Comcast. They give us a public access station. We also broadcast on Pulse. We have a Roku app and an Apple TV app. We've got the website live stream. We try and do videos related to specific projects and programs, and we put those on our website as well. So really, really trying our best to get information to you guys delivered the way that you want to consume it. We are seeing that people are tuning in. They're consuming video. And we are just watching, like the Pew Research Center announced in 2025 that YouTube, #1 platform for people to consume their information on right now, not Facebook anymore. So we do follow that. Any other questions from in person? No more questions from online? All right. So with that, we're going to conclude this, but I want to let you know that we will get it posted to letstalkloveland.org/budget and lovegov.org by noon on Friday. So if you want to share this with your friends, if you want to stop and talk to us on the way out, we do have some time to before we have to clean up, to stop and chat. We just appreciate your time so much. Thank you and have a great day.